There is a school in epidemiology which happens to be the orthodoxy. That's what we teach in Epidemiology 101. I'm saying we because I teach psychiatry in several universities. I teach neuroscience and so on. I'm part of the kind of medical fraternity. So my colleagues, my equivalents, the epidemiologists, they teach in Epidemiology 101. The first thing you learn, never impose a universal quarantine or universal social distancing. That's absolutely the wrong thing to do. What you do is you quarantine or isolate vulnerable populations, and you let the other non-vulnerable parts of society get infected in order to generate herd immunity. There is no other protection against a virus except herd immunity. This is not a bacterium. There's a difference between how bacteria propagate and the protections against bacteria. In the case of bacteria, you do need to impose quarantine, but not in the case of a virus, especially not a respiratory virus, and especially not a member of the SARS family. So we did everything absolutely wrong. We did everything wrong. We isolated everyone, so the people who could have resisted the virus could have served as a firewall. For example, the young were not allowed to get infected. So now there's no firewall. And what do you think will happen? The quarantine will be lifted. Social isolation at some point has to be terminated. And then we are defenseless. There will be a second wave. Even much worse. It gives time to the virus to mutate. For example, to recombine with a flu virus. And then we may face the Spanish flu. Redux.
That so I'm obviously I'm no expert in epidemiology. When we talk about herd immunity, the only thing I had heard was that the UK was thinking about doing something like that, but then some memo from their health minister got leaked out saying some crazy number of people could die, like a million people, and the idea being that young people could have the infection and not realize it, not show any symptoms, and then just pass it on to their grandparents who could die. Is that something to be concerned about?
That is true. That is true if the grandparents are allowed to be in touch with the grandchildren. I just said the vulnerable populations have to be isolated. Absolutely. Yeah. They include the old, the immunocompromised, pre-existing conditions. These people have to be, of course, isolated. And when I say isolated, I mean isolated. They shouldn't even meet the pizza delivery man. Yeah. That's what isolation means. And of course they should be isolated. No question about this. But all the others should have been exposed to the virus on purpose. There was an equivalent in another branch of medicine. For many, many decades, we have taught mothers not to expose their children to dirt. It was known as the hygiene hypothesis. And so mothers did not expose their children to dirt. Dirt, I mean soil, dirty things. Consequently, these children, generations of children, failed to develop immunity. And the long-term consequence was a dramatic quintupling of allergies, asthma, and other autoimmune disorders.
Right.
And today we instruct mothers to expose their children to dirt, to allow them to develop immunity. There is only one way to generate population-wide immunity: exposure. Nothing else works. Definitely not universal quarantine, which is strongly recommended against by any epidemiological and virological authority. Even the medical officer of the United Kingdom made very clear that it's wrong to quarantine and socially isolate the entire population. This is a political decision, not a medical one.